welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Fee. I'm currently a first year psychology student at the University of Manchester. I figured I'd do this video today to talk about the year I've just experienced, because damn, it was an experience. I also figured my opinion might be useful if you're considering going to Manchester. Obviously you won't be going anything during a pandemic, hopefully, fingers crossed, but I figured that at least hearing what it was like for students in a pandemic might give you a better overall view of what the uni is like as a uni. Just a quick disclaimer, I don't speak on behalf of the uni. Everything I will say in this video is my personal opinion or the opinion of people who are very close to me, who I've spoken to about their experience as well. So like, please don't shout at me. I'm going to split this video into 4 sections. I'm going to do a section on accommodation and what accommodation I was in and how I found it, my course, so psychology at UOM specifically, my social life like this year and how it was affected by COVID and all of that, and how hopefully that will be completely different to yours, I beg, but what mine was like, and then like my overall opinion of the uni and like if I recommend it or not. Let's go. I'm going to start off with talking about accommodation. So you pick your top 5 accommodations out of all of the ones they've got in all areas. So you can pick like 2 from Victoria Park, 2 from Fallowfield, 1 from City, vice versa. And then they randomly assign you one of the 5, like hopefully one of your 5. Some people I know didn't get any of their 5, depending on whether you went through clearing or because of the whole grade scandal. But you hopefully get one of your 5. I got one of my 5. And then you put down your deposit and then you're good to go. The accommodation that I stayed in was Denmark Road, which is a city campus accommodation, but it's like kind of private, as in the university like rent out a block. And I was in a flat of 5 people, and there were 1 other person from the UK, 3 international students. And my accommodation was known for having a high percentage of international students because it was an expensive one. It's a similar price to Unsworth in Fallowfield, if you know accommodations at Manchester, but it was about £164 a week, which is quite expensive for accommodation. I think it's the most expensive one. You can get like a lot cheaper accommodation, obviously. Like I know Unsworth is a little bit cheaper than that, I think, and Whitworth Park, which is the other city accommodation, is only about £115 a week. But my accommodation was ensuite, double bed, and the kitchen was massive for what, like, for the amount of people that were actually living there. There was like sofas, TVs, a hob and all of that kind of thing. So you do get, you can see the price difference and where it is. Some pros of my accommodation were that it was really nice. It was a nice, well decorated. It was like, it was new as well. I think it was only about 2 or 3 years old now, or maybe 4 or 5, I'm not sure, but it was new. And it's really close to uni. In all fairness, all city campus ones and Victoria Park ones, to be fair, are only about a 15-20 minute walk from the actual university itself. Like the only other positive I can really think of my accommodation was that parcels were really easy to get. Like the reception always had someone on it, so you always got your parcels, which is something that I know quite a lot of actual uni accommodations struggle with staff being so short because of COVID. It was really hard to get parcels. There's some cons of my accommodation where city campus is known for being not the most sociable. So if you're looking at accommodation for Manchester and you want the parties, you want the socials, you want to be doing something every night of the week and all of that kind of thing, you want lots of people around, you don't go to city campus. In my opinion, it was not great. Whitworth Park was all right for socials, but again, it's not the best, as in I know quite a lot of people who do go to Fallow for parties and that kind of thing. I literally didn't know anyone living in my accommodation apart from like 2 or 3 people on the group chat because of COVID. Like nobody was really mixing and mingling in my accommodation, so that was kind of hard. But I think City was known for that anyway, so I don't know how different it would have been in a normal year, if any different. Because it was a private accommodation, I didn't have any cleaners. The university employ cleaners for your kitchens and shared bathrooms if you're in like uni-based accommodation. My accommodation didn't have that, which meant the kitchen got quite messy quite quickly if people weren't cleaning up like very regularly. The cost, I think, is a massive downside of my accommodation. It was very expensive, and depending on what maintenance loan you get and what support you get from your family for paying for accommodation, it's not the most attainable for a lot of students. Also, my accommodation promised quite a lot of like special features as part of the price, which were like a games room and the pool table and all of these like study areas and everything, and quite a lot of them were shut most of the year because of COVID, but I guess that's kind of what you expect from a pandemic. Things are not going to be open. So if you are thinking of applying to Manchester accommodation rather than going private, because I know quite a few people do that as well, depending on what accommodation they get, if you want the socials and you want parties, you want big flats, like my flat only had 5 in city, whereas I know the Valleyfield ones have 10 or 8, I think. Go to Valleyfield if you want socials. Victoria Park is also not as bad as people paint it out to be, in my opinion. I think it's close and it's not being like monitored as much as the city one, because like like security drive past my accommodation in Whitworth Park quite a lot. I think, I don't know about Victoria Park, but I know it's more sociable than city, and it's still close, like really close. So consider that as well. It's not as awful as people make it out to be. But yeah, that's how I thought accommodation was this year. Next, I'm going to talk about my course, which was Psychology BSc, so not like the master's version or anything like that, just a normal psychology course. So if you don't want to hear about psychology as a subject at University of Manchester, if you're not doing psychology and you just want to hear about the other parts of it, skip ahead. I'll put the little timestampy thing for where you want to go to either in the description or up there, whichever one I figure out how to do. I'll start off by talking about how the content and the teaching was like laid out. Basically, it was pre-recorded lectures with a live Q&A after like the time slot they gave you to do the online lecturing. Like, I personally never did the lectures in the timetabled slot, but I know quite a few people did, and then the Q&A kind of followed it for you to like ask questions about the content if you have any. And I also had seminars and labs, which were again on Zoom, but they were live Zooms, so you'd get put in a big room with like 150 students, and the teacher would talk, like the professor would talk, and you'd all have your mics off and cameras off, and then they'd split you into breakout rooms with a smaller group of people in labs and seminars. Like, you do stats labs and you have the same group every week, and then the seminars you kind of mix and match. I didn't really go to many seminars, so I can't really talk about those, but the ones I did go to, it was the same group of like 10 people with a TA, a PhD student TA person, who'd like talk to you about the topic that you needed, and most of the time they related to your coursework. So for example, I had to make a poster based on a research paper for cognition module in semester 1, and we had to read the paper before the seminar, and then we turn up to the seminar and discuss the paper and basically summarize each section of it. Research papers, if you're doing psychology, oh my goodness, they are hard to understand. When you first start at uni, I don't think I understood a single word of one of them until late second semester. They are confusing, so maybe a word of advice: if you are doing psychology or any like sciencey based course, read a few research papers before you go, just to get the gist of the writing style, because you will also have to write them as lab reports for experiments that you'll do. I again didn't really do any experiments, they were all like tasks on Zoom, and then we had to talk about them and then write a lab report on them, which again, not the best, but pandemic and University of Manchester were very particular about not letting people into the university. I only ever went in for revision in the Ali G building, which is like one of the big study buildings on campus. I only went there around exam season for semester 2. The final sort of learning you have is tutorials, which is a group of 15 of you and a professor, a member of staff at the university. And the tutorials are for professional development, the module that you do in first year, which I don't think it has any credits. It might be 10 or 20 credit. It might have credits, but I'm not sure if your grade counts towards your final grade. And it's basically like career enhancement and learning like about what different types of careers they have in psychology, because I think psychology and employment is a big issue, because no one really knows what they want to do, because psychology is like the classic degree to go into if you have no idea what you want to do. So they try and focus on careers as soon as they can. You have to like write reflections about exams you've done, coursework you've done, and I had to make a LinkedIn profile and start interacting with people in fields I'm interested in. So for example, I was considering marketing and advertisement, so I had to like write a mock example of something I would write to someone who was working in advertisement at the moment and that kind of thing. I will give you a heads up about one thing. If you've done A-level psychology and you're expecting it to be anything like that, don't. The amount of biology and statistics, like maths, in the degree is phenomenal. Like, you would not be able to prepare yourself. It's so much. And as someone who dropped maths A-level within the first term of doing it in sixth form and then hasn't done biology since GCSEs, I think that was quite difficult for me, especially transitioning into such intense biology, as in it is fairly A-level standard biology in the degree, which obviously you get the step, but it was hard for someone who hasn't done it. And thankfully all my exams were online open book, otherwise I don't know if I'd have passed the biology and the stats, because it's really complicated if you haven't got a biology brain. My English brain was fine with essays, but not the biology. Next we'll talk about coursework. So you have maybe 3 different types of coursework. You have multiple choice questions as like little quizzes on Blackboard. You've got lab reports, essays, and group projects. So I had a group project in second semester. It was an optional module, but it was a group project where we all had to record ourselves doing a presentation, which obviously would normally have been a lecture theatre, but it couldn't be, so we did it on Zoom. The essays are particularly challenging at first. I think my first essay everyone found ridiculously confusing, because when you first got to uni, I think it may have just been my year, I don't really know, but they didn't really give us an awful lot of advice on how to do coursework. Like, we'd ask questions on the discussion boards on Blackboard and they'd take a few days to reply, and they were really brief, and like you couldn't ask specific questions to specific members of staff if you didn't want it to be public, and that kind of it was hard to understand quite what they were asking for. So quite a few people got quite low marks in the coursework at the start of the semester, like the start of semester 1, and they gradually improved. Like, for example, I think I got a 52 on my first essay, which is like a low 2-2. And then in the most recent one that I got the grade back for, I got an 80. So that kind of gives you the jump that people make between first and second semester once they've got used to the course style. The other type is lab reports, which are a challenge. Again, I still don't know how to do them really. Like, I've got 52s and 55s on them all year. Like, even second semester, they are a big jump from A-level. They are nothing you've ever done before, unless you did, I don't know what sciences did. Yeah, I might have done them at sciences, but I did. At A-level I did music, English, lit lang and psychology, and I had never covered anything like it, so I think that was quite hard. And yeah, the group project was okay. I think again, there's always going to be problems with group projects, that you're never going to completely enjoy it, but it is what it is, and it's a lot less work than the course was, I think, because you only have to do your little bit and make sure everyone else is pulling their weight. And then exams this year were all online, open book. I had some multiple choice exams where you get timed for like 45 minutes to 2 hours depending on the subject, and you do like multiple choice questions and answer them. And then a couple of written exams, so I had 48 hours to write a 3-page essay, and then other ones I had like 7 days to write 250 words on some kind of biological structure or something like that. So they did vary, and I think they would be very different in a normal year, but that's how I was tested this year. And I will get my results soon. I might post a video talking about my results if you want that. Let me know if you want that. Like the video, can't, I don't really know, just let me know. I don't really care about showing my grades, so I'm happy to. I'd also like to share how I took notes for lectures and seminars and everything. I bought myself an iPad. I have the iPad Air, the new one, so I have the Apple Pencil, and I think I literally don't know how I would have gone through the year without it, to be honest, because you could just, they send you the lecture slides for the online lectures, so you can just download them onto your iPad and annotate them if you don't feel like writing notes, and then when you have written notes, they're all in the same place and you can sort them out into folders and stuff. I use GoodNotes 5, the app. I think it's like £5 or £10 or something, but it does like laptop style organisation, so it was really easy to use. And also, like, when you were sending in coursework and stuff, it was all PDFs and that kind of thing, so it was easy to formulate it on the iPad, and it just made my life a whole lot easier. So I would highly recommend getting an iPad for note taking if you're taking psychology. I don't know what other degrees I'd recommend it for, or maths. My boyfriend does maths at UOM, and he literally would not have coped without an iPad because all of his exams were written exams, and obviously maths, you can't really type up maths, so most people were like scanning in documents of paper, whereas he was just like able to write it all on the iPad and send that off as a PDF, and it made things a lot clearer for him and a lot more straightforward. So psychology and maths I can highly recommend an iPad for. Okay, I think that's everything for my course that I want to talk about. If you've got any more course related questions, feel free to like DM me on Instagram. I'll put my Instagram tag below, and also comment any questions you have, and I'll try my best to answer every single one I can. Now I'm going to talk a bit about my social life for the year, which was hindered. I think social life, or lack thereof, I didn't really exist this year. I think COVID really impacted the way I socialised, and also during freshers, which is like the first week, if you don't know what freshers is, it's like where everyone kind of gets to know each other, there's lots of parties going on, and obviously with COVID hitting a peak, I actually got COVID during freshers and had to isolate for 10 days, so kind of missed the whole thing. I didn't really meet a lot of people during freshers, and of course because uni we weren't in person, I didn't actually meet any people on my course other than 2 girls who I knew before, Hannah and Iona, hi, and Jess, someone who was in my tutorial group who I met literally a few weeks ago for the first time, and I'd literally been in classes with her on Zoom all year. But meeting people on my course didn't really happen this year. I hope it's different next year, otherwise I will probably consider dropping out, because it's really not ideal not knowing people on your course other than on a group chat. But yeah, so it did not have the most sociable year. I had my boyfriend and my flatmates, and that was basically my social circle for the year. With COVID as well, there was also no societies running this year other than on Zoom calls, and quite a lot of societies you have to pay a joining fee, so I didn't join any this year because I was not paying for Zoom calls basically. And I think that's going to be a massive difference next year, is when I can actually join society. The final thing that really impacted my social life was my flatmates were quite scared of COVID. Obviously I got it, and they all kind of freaked out, or some of them freaked out, and I didn't really care, but they cared a lot more than me, and therefore I wasn't able to go and socialise with people because they'd ask where I was and be on it about who I was seeing and COVID tests and all of that kind of thing. But yeah, social life was not there this year, sadly. Another really important social aspect of first year is finding flatmates for year 2. I'm currently in my second year house. This is my room in my we have like half a house, so we have the ground floor and the basement as like our social and kitchen area, and then 4 rooms on here. I'm living with 2 of my flatmates who I got on with really well, and my boyfriend who's in the room next door. You can probably hear all of this, but you know, and we all got on really well, and obviously we didn't really meet many other people, as in we didn't really meet course mates, and we didn't really meet other people in our accommodations because we just weren't able to socialise due to COVID restrictions and fines and all of that kind of thing, which made it quite difficult. So I think people who didn't get on with their flatmates and didn't know other people in the city really struggled with finding housemates. And also, if you don't live with your if you haven't already lived with people who you're going to be living with next year, it's like could cause big issues. I know there's been quite a lot of fallings out between people who are moving houses, and friendship dramas and all of that kind of thing. I think I'm living with 3 other boys, so I'm the only girl. I know quite a lot of the girls are like, oh, it'll be fine with 7 of us sharing one bathroom, and I can't think of anything worse. But I think just make sure that when you are looking for houses, which I started doing in November, and we'd signed all of the documents before the December holidays when everyone went home for Christmas, which is like normal time to start. Most people have got their house like booked and ready by like beginning of February, mid-February. But I'd say, a word of advice, check reviews of the companies and the landlords that you're looking into the houses of, because I know there's some that are quite sketchy, and I think landlords can be quite temperamental in some places. And make sure you know the people you're going to be living with quite well, to the point where you know if you can put up with them or not for weeks and weeks and weeks, and all of that kind of thing, and that they'd be people who are similar, like-minded to you. Like, you don't want someone who, if you're not a very social party person, to be out partying and bringing people over all the time if that's not who you are, and vice versa. Like, you don't want to be living with loads of quiet people if you want to be going out with all your friends all the time. Just make sure you're living with like-minded people, I'd say. finally, so at the start of the year, promised us this thing called blended learning, which at the moment there is a lot of press going on about them saying that they're trying to continue blended learning, whatever that may mean to them. What it meant to us was we got told we would go in person for a few things a week, and it ended up being, in the first week we got told we'd only have an hour-long tutorial every fortnight in person, and after 2 weeks they'd cancelled them for basically the whole year, and we never went in person at all. So our blended learning was completely online for most courses, unless you are an essential course such as medicine, nursing, dentistry, I think, and veterinary sciences. Those courses all counted as essential, so they had like labs and seminars in person and they met their course mates, whereas like no other course did unless you did it outside of the course. But that was a lot for the uni to have promised us when we all started, and I think quite a lot of people would have held off a year and gone next year if they'd have known that that's how it was going to be. Online learning is, as they've said previous years, is not the same as going into lectures and being interactive in person. The fact that they turn around and were like, no, it's just the same, you're going to get the same quality of education, really says a lot. Overall, would I recommend the university? I'd say it depends entirely on the type of person you are and the ways that you enjoy learning. I think the university this year have particularly promoted independent studies rather than learning in groups and getting one-on-ones with professors and in smaller groups. They didn't really emphasize that. It was very much about doing online lectures, online classes, coursework on your own. It was very independent based. So if you're not really an independent learner, maybe consider a small university. I think that if the smaller the university you go to, the more personal of a university experience it is. Like, as Manchester is such a big city university, you're not going to get as personal as an experience. Like, my lecturers don't really know who I am unless it's my tutorial lead or that kind of thing. And I think if you want a personal experience, Manchester's probably not the best, because it's just not very one-on-one based. It's not very interactive, especially this year. I think COVID has made that particularly hard. But I love Manchester as a city. Love it here. Even despite COVID, it's been quite jolly. It's always a cheery city. There's always something going on. There's always something to do, something to look at, something to go find. So I think Manchester 100% recommend. The university depends. And some advice I've got for if you are applying to Manchester after all of this: make sure you get on socials before you arrive. Join the freshers pages on Instagram. They always have like a freshers like welcome page where you post like a picture of yourself and a little description, and you can meet and talk to people who are in similar accommodations, similar courses, similar interests as you, just to get a little bit of a social bubble before you go, because the more links you have before you go, the more opportunities you have during freshers, which that means you're going to have more friends and more things to do all throughout the year, and you're a lot less likely to be lonely, I think. Another thing I would recommend is don't look at your A-level content before you get there, unless you're doing something like maths or physics or biology or that kind of thing, because psychology I found changed quite a bit when we got to degree level. Things were phrased differently in different orders, like things like stages were always all named differently, so it wasn't a case of memorising the ones that you had at A-level anymore. They were different, they changed, so there's no point in wasting your time looking at A-level content before you come. And make sure that when you're picking your accommodation, you pick 5 accommodations that you wouldn't mind living at. Don't just do place fillers. Make sure you'd be okay living at all 5 that you apply for, because I know some people accommodation is a make or break for some people, and if you aren't comfortable with the way you're living, especially in a year like this year where you spent the whole of it in your accommodation, I think that really affects the way that you view the university life and how your university experience goes. So make sure that you pick 5 accommodations you actually would live in comfortably. Yeah, I think that's all the advice I have. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful to you. This was basically just a little advice and insight into what university was like for me in first year. And yeah, if you've got any questions, comment below or DM me on Instagram at _FionNeil. I'll put it in the bio below. And yeah, thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll be posting more soon, so keep an eye out for the channel, subscribe. But yeah, thanks.